Hello, my name is Utkarsh Jain, and the purpose of this video presentation is to understand the key differences between the two professional programs. The first one is Chartered Accountancy and the second one is Chartered Financial Analyst. Now when I'm talking about CFA, we are talking about CFA which is offered by the US Institute. Now before I start with my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Utkarsh and I finished my Chartered Accountancy, and while finishing my CA, I also finished CFA. So I would like to share my personal experiences in terms of certain key important points. So the first one is the level of difficulty of CA versus CFA exam. And over the years, I've heard this question very frequently. In fact, every CA student who comes to us would typically ask how difficult is CFA compared to CA. So we'll discuss about that. Then we would understand the differences in terms of what cost or what investment you would have to incur in a CFA program and CA. We would talk about if a CA student wants to start CFA, what would be the appropriate time to do it? What are the work experience requirement in CFA? The average pays which are there for CFAs as against the chartered accountants. And we would also talk about what kind of career opportunities exist for CA and CFA combination. So let us start. The first question is a level of difficulty. Now let's have a look at the exam format of CFA so that things would be more clear. The level 1 and level 2, the three exams of CFA, level 1, 2 and 3, the first two are purely a multiple choice question based exams, meaning of which is there would be three options A, B, C, and you would be required to choose the appropriate one. In level 3, in the morning, you have to write constructed response, or also called as essays, which are different from what we are used to write. These are short clips or short answers to certain cases. And then again in the afternoon, you have to write 60 multiple choice question exams. Now the very exam format creates a lot of difference in the two exams in terms of how do you prepare for CA and how do you prepare for CFA. So I remember that while preparing for my CA finals, or for that matter even the inter exams, one was required to remember a lot of things. For example, in your law or in your taxation, indirect taxation, whatever might be the subject, you would be required to remember a lot of things and reproduce them on the exam. So to a point where I felt that CFA was more often dependent on, CA was more on dependent on your ability to remember and reproduce on the day of exams. As against this, with the exam format of CFA, this question exam paper is purely analytical. So what do I mean by this is that with CFA, you need to have that analytical bent of mind. Only mugging up and reproducing on the exam does not work with CFA exams. So what you need to know is that if I know a concept, how do I apply that concept in different scenarios, and can I use it in a realistic scenario and come to a solution to a problem? So if you feel that you are someone who's analytical bent of mind, and how do you decide that? If you have liked costing in your CS syllabus, or if you've liked FM in your CS syllabus or accounting, then probably you would enjoy studying for CFA more, because the subject is somewhat similar to financial management in IPCC or Inter, or SFM in CA final. So this was the one. So personally for me, CFA exams and CFA studies were much more enjoyable than CS studies. I also felt them more easier than the level of difficulty, primarily because I was not required to remember a lot of things, but just to understand and move on. So this is your first part. Now we would look at the costing part of CA and CFA. Now CFA, assuming an average exchange rate and assuming that someone passes all the exams in the first go, would cost you somewhere in the range of 1.5 lakhs per annum. Whereas what I feel is CA is a substantially cheaper program in terms of the fees that you would be giving to the institute. So probably all your levels would be somewhere around 20 or 30,000 cumulative for all the three exams, or slightly higher than that. Now, the only difference what I feel is that the CA is a 5-year program or a 4.5-year program, whereas CFA can be finished in 1.5 to 2 years. So there is no articleship component directly. Okay, of course CFA also requires certain work experience, but there is no articleship. The big difference is that in CA you would be doing that articleship of 3 years. Now what happens is that in India these articles are not paid very heavily. Okay, so let us say that you are being paid on an average 5K a month. So what it means is for those 3 years, you're losing a significant opportunity cost. So even if you consider an average pay of 15,000 a month, that turns out to be lesser 10,000 a month, and that over the period of 3 years. So though CA directly will not have a substantial cost attached in terms of what you would give to the institute, but yes, there would be a lot of significant opportunity cost involved here. Whereas CFA with their work experience requirement do not ask you to do any articleship. What they say is that they want a 4-year relevant work experience. And what it would mean is that when you pass your level 1, you can take up a job. This would be a full-fledged job, not an articleship, which means they will pay you and they will also respect you. And because of which you would not lose that opportunity cost here, and therefore CFA relatively becomes a bit cheaper because you recover that cost very, very quickly. The second benefit is that it's a 4.5-year program, and the recognition comes when you are a CA final qualified. That means you passed all the 3 exams. Whereas with CFA, that recognition comes in smaller parts. So even if you pass level 1, there's a ready-made job market available, or you can put that on your CV and look for good quality jobs in the market. So this was on the costing part. Now let us say that if you are a CA student, then what is the right time when you should start your studies? So I started my studies in the first year of articleship, and I feel that it really helped me because CFA will help you to look at things more analytically and logically. So ideally, these days I have seen a lot of people starting their CFA right when they start their articleship. You can start it anytime during your articleship. There is a very strong synergy between the CFA syllabus and CA final syllabus. So if you've passed CFA level 1, you would fit really comfortable with CA final SFM, which is a subject that you have in finals. And if you also passed level 2, then you would feel really good with SFM, as well as you would cover some part of your accounting, which is in the first group. So the appropriate time is to start when you start your articleship, but there is no such cap or restriction. You can do it whenever you feel you are ready for writing the exams. We've already discussed about work experience requirement. CFA requires 4 years of relevant work experience. So a common question is CA articleship considered as work experience? The answer is, just a minute. The answer is no. CA articleship will not be required as the relevant work experience. But yes, what is that 4 years? When should you do it? It can be done before you start CFA, during when you're doing CFA, or after you do CFA. So the good thing with CFA is that, as I said, that there are 3 exams, and after having passed all the 3, you apply for CFA Chartered, and that time you need that CFA 4-year of work experience. But I have seen a lot of people in India who would pass level 3 exams, and then the recognition given by the employer to level 3 qualified is as good as a CFA Chartered holder. So it's like if you pass CA final, you're almost a CA. In the similar fashion, if you pass CFA level 3, you're almost a CFA. There is nothing that you can do to get that 4 years of work experience in 2 years. And so that will come automatically with time. Let's now talk about the 5th point, which is average pays for CFAs and CA. And this is a most common question and also the most difficult one to answer. The reason being that it really depends on what industry, what vertical you decide to work in. Now, my personal or individual observation is that the pays in investment banking are substantially higher than any other industry. So if you are a chartered financial analyst and if you're working in areas, if you're an iBanker working in any of these verticals, then you would be paid substantially higher than what is on an average being paid to a fresher chartered accountant. But of course, it varies significantly on individual and also on what sectors that you work. Now, the final question is that career opportunities. And what I feel is that I titled my presentation, we called this as CA versus CFA. But probably what I feel is the correct title for this should have been a CA plus CFA combination. And why do I say this is, a chartered accountant would make you extremely strong in areas like accountancy. It would make you really strong with taxation. It would make you really strong with auditing. And it would give you some other knowledge of laws, right? So you would have certain securities laws and business laws. Whereas a CFA wouldn't, it's not an India specific program, so it wouldn't talk about Indian taxation per se. It doesn't cover accounting so much in depth. It has got financial reporting and analysis, which is step after accounting. So CFA will make you extremely strong with financial concepts, where generally I feel CA would lack in terms of the level of depth and analytical approach. So a CA plus CFA combination kind of gives you best of both the worlds. So how it helps is, let us say if I'm an employer and I am looking for a profile on equity research analyst, then what I would want is, I would want someone who would understand an Indian annual report very much in depth. You should understand the intricacies of it. Plus, I would also want someone who can analyze and forecast and use the financial part of it. So that's where a CA and CFA combination fits in perfectly. Or another example is, let us say I want to recruit someone for a due diligence profile, right? So there is a M&A due diligence. Now what I would want is someone who would understand the finance part of it and also the legal aspects of it. And that's where again a CA plus CFA fits in perfectly. So what CFA would do for a chartered accountant is, it would open up a lot of spectrum of opportunities which otherwise a CA would not find very easily. So the concepts or the topics which are discussed are my personal opinion, and the opinion might vary from different person to person. This is Utkarsh Jain, and thank you very much for your time.